Anyone who has traveled to Turkey has not left without obtaining some information about Mustafa Kemal Atatürk. His face is present in streets and squares in the form of statues. His portraits are hung within schools, universities, and government buildings. His face is even present on the banknotes. Even at the borders of Syria and Iraq, you will find statues depicting him. He is often portrayed as the leader who fought against the imperialists and who inspired colonized peoples to fight for their independence. How well does that description fit the reality of who Atatürk was? Mustafa Kemal Atatürk is a man that is adored by millions of people. However, he played a significant role in different conflicts that exist to this very day. Many of the problems in the Muslim world were caused by him. Atatürk was the one who abolished the Caliphate in 1924, which had existed from the time of Abu Bakr radiallahu anh. Even though Muslims have had internal conflicts and problems, just like any other group, their societies were for the most part governed by Islamic law. By covering the actions of Atatürk, we will come to know that he was the enemy of Allah and His Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam. In the Quran, Allah revealed the stories of Pharaoh, Nimrud, and other evil people to make us cautious and warn us from following their footsteps. Likewise, we need to discuss Atatürk and his evil actions. The fact that it is illegal to criticize Atatürk by law has made it difficult to raise awareness about his evil actions. Turkish law 5816 protects Atatürk's memory from being offended by any Turkish citizen and is punishable by prison for up to 3 years. It is said that he was from the Donmeh, a group of Sabbatean Cryptojews in the Ottoman Empire who converted publicly to Islam but retained their beliefs in secret. This movement was centered in Thessaloniki, the same city that Atatürk was born in 1881 and the city that he grew up in. Having risen through the Ottoman military ranks, Atatürk initially declared his support for the Sultan and preached about the Islamic fraternity between Turks and Kurds and all the other Muslim minorities within the Ottoman Empire. Masses of tribes and lay people offered their support to Atatürk, thinking that he was fighting to defend the people's religious identity. Atatürk married Latifa Uşak, but they divorced on 5th of August 1925. The circumstances of their divorce remain publicly unknown. A 25-year-old court order banned the publication of his former wife's diaries and letters, which might have contained information about their relationship. The Turkish History Foundation kept the letters since 1975. Upon expiration of the court order, the THF said that Latifa's family demanded that the letters remain confidential. Not only did Atatürk abolish the Caliphate, but he also forced the Caliph and his family into exile. During the Ottoman Empire, the law stipulated that the official religion is Islam. Atatürk, however, removed Islam as an official religion. Instead, he replaced the laws with different Western laws, based on the Italian and Swiss judicial systems. Atatürk banned the position and title of Shaykh al-Islam, who acted as the Grand Mufti. He removed the Islamic inheritance distribution system. He forbade nikah that was done according to Islam, and he also abolished the divorce period for women to remarry. He criminalized the wearing of the hijab. Prior to Atatürk, governmental oaths were sworn by Allah. Atatürk changed this so that every government official takes an oath by Turkey and Atatürk himself. Even today, government officials must take their oath in the name of Atatürk. His regime forbade circumcision for boys. However, after a period, they lifted the ban. He prohibited the use of Arabic during Friday prayers and Eid. He removed the Shahada from military flags. Imams used to advise and encourage soldiers. During Atatürk, however, this was removed and forbidden. Places of lectures were shut down so that people would not learn about Islam. During the Ottoman Empire, the mosques were decorated with Islamic calligraphy depicting the companions' names or caliphs. These were removed, and the only one left today is Hagia Sophia because it's too large and could not be taken out through the main entrance. Historical places that were carved with inscriptions of the Quran were destroyed. Atatürk replaced the Ottoman Turkish alphabet which is a version of the Arabic alphabet with the Latin alphabet. Quran lessons were banned. One was no longer allowed to recite the Quran in Arabic. Muslims had to flee to deserted areas such as the mountains to study. Ataturk also had plans to make people perform salah in Turkish. However, this decision never went through completely. Ataturk changed the adhan to Turkish. For a total period of 18 years, the call to prayer was performed in Turkish. Instead of Allah, the Turkish word Tanrı was used. It was forbidden to sell or distribute religious books. When Mehmet II conquered Constantinople and converted Hagia Sophia into a mosque, he said, "Whoever turns this mosque into something else, may the curse of Allah, the prophets, the angels, and the believers be upon that person." Ataturk turned Hagia Sophia into a museum, and people were prohibited from praying in it until recently. Ataturk turned mosques into stables for animals such as pigs and horses. His regime also turned them into pubs, casinos, and places for the military to sleep. Ataturk banned the fez and made it compulsory to wear Western hats and suits. Many religious leaders were killed because they refused to wear Western clothes. Some religious leaders stood up against Ataturk. One example is the Kurdish Sheikh Said, who appealed to all Muslims of the empire to join the rebellion against the Kemalists to re-establish the Caliphate. Sheikh Said fought against the Kemalist regime with his followers until he and his companions were caught and hung. In the aftermath of the rebellion, over 20,000 people were killed by Ataturk and his regime, including civilians. Ataturk's regime spoke ill of scholars and the newspapers and made them look like villains and traitors. Prime Minister Shukru Saracoğlu said, "Religion is poison. It will take us 30 years to eradicate Islam from the minds of people in Turkey." They said that all religious books must be burned. It was forbidden to perform Hajj and Umrah. After a while, however, this decision was repealed. Ataturk's regime allowed Muslim women to marry non-Muslims. Ataturk made it legal to criticize and slander Islam in school. The Kemalist regime portrayed Ataturk as better than the Prophet ﷺ. In the newspapers, it was allowed to curse the Prophet ﷺ and ridicule Islam. People were encouraged to idolize Ataturk to the degree that they almost worshipped Ataturk. Ataturk claimed that the Quran is something that the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ invented himself and that it is not the Book of God. The regime made sure that Kemalism is the religion that every citizen must follow, including the non-Turks. Ataturk made it compulsory for school children to proclaim "Ne mutlu Türk'üm diyene." Lucky is he who can call himself a Turk. The Kemalists imposed Turkification on all other non-Turkish minorities. They were not allowed to speak their mother languages except Turkish. The use of Kurdish, for example, was punishable by prison. The Kemalist regime measured the skulls of 64,000 dead people to compare them with Turks because they considered Turks as superior. The Kemalist regime opened heroin and beer factories. They also made it legal to sell pork. Also, they encouraged people to drink beer through advertisements. Ataturk changed the weekly holidays from Friday to Sunday. He also removed Eid as an official holiday and replaced it with Christian holidays. He also substituted the Hijri calendar with the Gregorian calendar. The Kemalists encouraged women to wear short skirts and to be lightly dressed. Also, they encouraged men to wear tight Western clothes. The Kemalist regime allowed men and women to swim naked on beaches. Ataturk himself used to bathe naked. Sabiha Gökçen, who was the adopted daughter of Ataturk, bombed the Kurds in Dersim in 1937, killing tens of thousands. Sabiha received medals for her efforts and has now an airport named after her in Istanbul. In a report regarding the people she bombed, she said, "I saw them as animals when I bombed them, not as humans." Ataturk formed the so-called religious ministry, Diyanet, the day after the Caliphate was abolished in 1924 in order to control all the religious learning and teaching that took place in the country. Therefore, it is crucial to consider and mention the evil actions of Mustafa Kemal Ataturk when discussing modern-day conflicts. in particular those that concern our Kurdish brothers and sisters in faith. It is especially important that our Turkish brothers and sisters in Islam raise awareness about this topic and convey the history in its proper context. One must point out his evil reformations, how he tried to extinguish Islam and what he did against the Muslims and others who refused to leave their beliefs in exchange for his ideology. One should not disregard the Turkish state's treatment of Kurds and how all of these things have affected today's society. The evil doctrine of Ataturk, which inspired Hitler and the Nazis in Germany, led to the systematic racism of Kurds that exists to this very day.